The value of patience and self-control during hardships. Lawani was a young man going into high school. He was new in the area, so he didn't know exactly how it worked, but there was a particular student there who was a classic bully. The student had a group of people who would follow him around, and this student was bigger than the other students, and so he would use his size to bully and intimidate others. And so Lawani was his victim. So when Lawani got to this new school, this bully saw him and went right for him. He was much bigger than Lawani. He started by using racial slurs to just try to goad Lawani and make Lawani feel upset. And he uh, started using his size, so he started going up very close to Luani, kind of like, "What are you going to do?" So he's yelling these slurs at him, and then he's like, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" He's looking down at Luani. So Luani had a few scenarios go through his head. What he wanted to do was to just punch the guy in the face really fast and hopefully catch him off guard. The reason why Luandi wanted to do this is because he kind of remembered his dad saying, "You have to get them before they get you." And Luandi was actually quite frightened in this situation because what if this bully hit him first? And the bully being much bigger, probably stronger, would have really hurt. Luandi was afraid of getting hurt and also embarrassed in front of all the classmates that were watching. And so his knee-jerk reaction was to lash out, but for some reason, it was like time stood still as Lawani played out the scenario, and he could picture himself on the first day of school being taken out in handcuffs for assault, and his classmate maybe would get away with it if the classmate played a victim, or maybe they would both be expelled from school as a result of fighting. Maybe he would get into a fight and lose the fight. He could miss the punch and end up getting hurt a lot worse for provoking the bully. Then Lawani thought of something else. He could try to run away. If he slipped past on the left-hand side, he could hit the ground running. Maybe these bullies then would chase after him. Because remember that when you run from a dog, then the dog chases you. So if the bullies chased him, then he'd have to run off school grounds and he would end up being late for his first class at the very least, depending on how far and how long these bullies chased him. So as Lawani played this scenario out, he started to realize that running away in this situation might not be the best case scenario, besides the fact that it makes him look like a coward. He was not a coward. He was just trying to figure out how could he best handle the situation, and his nervous system was feeling very dysregulated, and he didn't know what to do, but he felt like he needed to get away. Then he remembered that with the dog scenario, if you just stand still, then the dog will maybe sniff you and walk away, but it can't chase you if you're not running. So he thought about just freezing and doing nothing and allowing the terror to just paralyze him. But then again, he would look very weak and potentially be prey and sit there and take whatever this bully was going to throw at him. So as the one is going through all his options, he is able to decide upon the best possible option, which is to show patience and self-control. His patience allowed him to not try to take an immediate action like running or fighting, but instead to bide his time and walk away from the bully when he was able to. In walking away, he didn't look like a coward. In fact, he was exercising self-control. He was refusing to lash out and actually try to hurt the bully or harm the bully in this situation. And after giving it some thought, after he walked away, and after first period, he went to the school administrator and explained the situation that this bully had called him some racial slurs. And the administrator investigated the situation, much to Lawani's surprise, because he didn't think anybody was going to care. And as it turns out, it was against school policy, and there were witnesses who testified to the fact that indeed this bully did use these racial slurs. The bully also eventually, under pressure, admitted to it and was expelled from school. And Luwani never had to deal with this bully again, and neither did any of the other classmates. Turned out the bully had some other violations under his belt already. For Luwani, this was a best case scenario. But notice how he was able to arrive at this. It took him freezing time and being able to access patience and self control. But it's a lot easier said than done. Notice Luwani's his first ideas were fight, flight, and freeze. When we're in hard times, when we're going through difficulties and trials, it activates survival mode because it makes us feel nervous or upset. That's a dysregulation of the nervous system. Every person will experience that. Another word for feeling emotion, like fear or despair. When we have deep feelings, it puts us into our amygdala, which is the part of our brain that reacts in 1/12 of a second immediately to whatever the situation is for our survival. So imagine if there was like a snake next to you in the grass, you would need to be able to respond right away. And that's what that part of the brain is there for, so that you don't think, you just act. But what happens when we have complex trauma is we may still be using that part of our brain for everyday life. So we're not thinking, we're just acting. And so when someone asks us a question because we feel dysregulated and nervous, we start going into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. A lot of times a fawn response, which is people pleasing, or just doing whatever it is and giving in to whatever someone else wants. Or the flight response, which is you could be in an argument with someone and you just walk away, run away under in ideal circumstances, like running outside without your shoes, or running away and packing your car and driving off without a direction or any plan in place. Flight response can just lead you to doing things and going places that you regret, or even putting yourself in danger where you didn't need to be in danger. Or there's fight response, which you can verbally start sparring with someone, or you can actually lash out physically. You could be a breaker, someone who wants to just grab something and break it because you're going through this difficulty, because you're being tried. But this fight, flight, freeze, fawn does not produce good results in the long term because it's not a good long term strategy. It is only a moment to moment survival mechanism. It's automatic, which means in order to take control of your life, you need to bypass the initial response. You cannot live according to fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You cannot live according to instincts. You cannot allow feelings to guide your actions. Instead, you want to boot up the good old cerebral cortex, the larger, wiser part of your brain. It's not there to respond automatically. It doesn't. It's the smarter part of yourself. You have it. You know how people tell you, you give such good advice. And you go, yeah, that advice that I gave them was good, but it's like I can't seem to give that sort of advice to myself. When I'm going through it, I need someone to give me advice. The disconnection there is you're not firing up the good old cerebral cortex, the wiser part of your brain. It's like the canopy to the brain, and it's there for complex calculations. But when you're talking to someone else, because you're not going through their struggle, you're not triggered into fight, flight, freeze, fawn. You're not reacting in the amygdala. So therefore, you're able to help them because you're in your wise mind, because you're able to pause and think and observe. And that pause of about 5 to 7 seconds allows your cerebral cortex to come online. And all of a sudden, you've got all this wisdom that you're spitting to this person. You're just like, you should think about yourself and love for not just your other person, but yourself. And you should do this for yourself and take and blah, 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 blah. And you've got this balance, very wise solution to the problem that they're going through. And meanwhile, you can walk away and go back home and just cry yourself to sleep over your own problem. And you can't seem to connect that wise part to your situation. The reason is because you're in the trauma mind, which is responding according to that small little part of your brain, the amygdala. It's just designed for survival, but we're using it for everyday life. So, how do we fire up the good old cerebral cortex so we can access self control, patience, wisdom? by pausing. What Luwani did in his situation when he's got the bully standing over him at that very moment, he just paused for a moment. Breathe, blink, think. All you need to do. If you have time to breathe, blink, and think, you are not in a survival life or death situation, and you should access your higher wisdom. Breathe, blink, think. Hmm. Suddenly, after about 5 to 7 seconds, you will start to be able to access some wisdom and be able to apply patience to your situation and bypass the survival, the trauma, the brain that doesn't slow down, that thinks immediately and is trained to survive. The flashbacks of the chaotic environment that you grew up in when patience wasn't safe and it felt like a weakness and a danger. The complex trauma that brings about emotional flashbacks, which makes you feel like right now was back then, and back then is happening right now. In these moments, your system thinks that it's now or never, life or death, even though you're just in an uncomfortable situation. Patience is the ability to endure discomfort without becoming irritated or losing control. Patience is your ability to endure discomfort or suffering, provocation without lashing out or becoming upset. How do you do it? By choosing to bypass the initial emotional response that drives you into immediate action, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and instead just breathing and blinking to allow your wise mind to boot up, which only takes about 5 to 7 seconds. Allow the chemicals to wash through the initial chemicals of adrenaline that shoots through your system. Whoa, it's so big. But when you breathe, it reorders the chemistry of the brain. And then mine. And that's the beauty of patience. Because a little bit of patience tells you, oh, actually, I'm not in a survival life or death situation. I can think right now and I can strategize right now. Patience is not ignoring your needs or ignoring your feelings. It's choosing to meet them with clarity. And the clarity is not going to come in the first 1/12 of a second. You're speaking too fast. You're acting too fast. Slow down. Clarity comes after you've paused for 7 seconds. Even if that means you're making someone wait who's putting you on the spot. Roman, are those reports going to be in on time? 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000. I'm going to do the absolute best I can on that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I appreciate the reminder greatly. Wow, where did that wise response come from? I got access to the good part of the brain, the wise part of the brain. You can do that too. Try it. In fact, for the next few weeks, especially if you're newer on your healing journey, or even if you've been doing this for a while, but you started to regress, practice for every interaction with your wife and your children and your husband and whoever is around, and at work and at the gas station, making everyone wait 5 seconds before you respond to what they're asking and telling you to do. So then all of a sudden you're not over promising, you're not oversharing, you're not over apologizing. You're able to think. This helps us to regulate our nervous system so that we can act with intention. This is how we protect our peace so that we're not abandoning ourselves. Patience isn't passive. It's an active resistance to being pulled into the chaos. It's your ability to endure the discomfort momentarily so that you can allow yourself to access your wiser mind. As you do this, this gives birth to self-control. Self-control is your ability to base your actions on thoughts, well thought out decisions, to be exact. Self-control is your ability to base your actions on well thought out decisions. What's happening with someone who says, "Oh, I don't have good self-control," is that they act, but it wasn't based on a well thought out decision. It was just based on instinct, feelings, emotion, fear. Why did you punch that in the face? I don't have any self-control. Why did you yell at that woman? Why did you swear? Why did you curse? I don't have any self-control. What's actually happening? Why did you overeat? Why did you eat so much? I don't have any self-control. I'm going through a hard time. I'm going through some difficulty right now. Slow down. Pause. Hard time, difficulty happening around you. Inside your body, you have the ability to control the actual actions. It's not an excuse that you were going through a difficulty. For instance, you wouldn't listen to an abusive husband tell you, "I had to hit my wife. She said something really mean to me." That doesn't sound right, does it? No. He's expected to exercise self-control. A mother saying, "I had to punch my child. It was misbehaving." That doesn't sound right, does it? No, it's abuse because it lacks self-control. So how do we do self-control? Well, self-control is your ability to base the action on a well thought out decision. The reason why people are hitting their children and hitting their spouses and yelling and cursing and tearing down is because they're not basing the decision on a well or their action on a well thought out decision. They're basing it on the impulse, the feeling in the moment. Well, you are a son of a gun. Hold on. Just before we start cursing people and yelling and acting, let's just slow down and think. That's all. Just give me 5 to 7 seconds, and you will be so grateful to yourself, so grateful, so that you don't do things you regret and end up having to apologize to the offender, to the person who really initially offended and triggered you, and you have to go back and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't handle that correctly." Jeez, they're already abusing you. How much worse that now you have to apologize to your abuser because you didn't handle the abuse correctly. No, 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 none of that. What we're going to do instead, we're going to slow down, breathe, blink, think. Self-control is your basing your actions on a well thought. So you think, well thought out decision. It would be better if I keep my hands down right now and I don't hit. I just talk to the person about what they said and how it makes me feel. Oh, it would be better if I don't say that first thing that came to my head because I could have to apologize for that later and it really doesn't reflect who I truly am or how I feel. Hmm. Now other people can recognize, wow, you have such good self-control. I would have flipped out. And now you can pass this wisdom on to them. No, you have the ability to have self-control too. It's just basing your action on a well thought out decision instead of the initial impulse. And they'll say to you, how do you bypass the initial impulse? It's so strong. When I feel the feelings, it's so strong. And you'll say, those are just chemicals. I understand how you feel. But you have to pause and wait 5 to 7 seconds before acting. You have to breathe, blink, and think. And they'll say, "Thank you so much. You have so much wisdom on this topic." And you'll continue to be known as someone who gives really good advice. Does that make sense? So, in real life, how can we put this into practice? Well, if we receive a triggering text message, for instance, We can wait. Maybe a few hours, maybe 24 hours before responding. Maybe if the message is abusive, it's not going to require a response at all. We might realize we don't want to respond to that. Or we can choose a coping tool like taking a walk, journaling, breath work. When you go to distraction, that's just flight response. I want you to realize that. When you go to, oh, I'm going through a hard time, so I just want to zone out. I just want to veg out. I just want to scroll. It's not always wrong to disconnect, right? And to get that diversion time. That's not always wrong. But please recognize that it's flight response. If that's what your go-to is in every situation, I'm stressed, so let me just get away. Some people take naps to get away. Some people scroll through social media. Some people watch TV. Some people listen to music. None of those things are wrong, but be aware that you're not using it as a flight response. You have to breathe, blink, and think. When you're alone, it's time to meditate. Put it down on a piece of paper. Don't be afraid. Sometimes people are afraid that it's going to trigger them to write down the things that are stressing them out. It's actually just the opposite. It relieves the brain from having to carry it in the subconscious. It relieves the mind. Once it sees that you're writing it down, it says to itself, oh, she's taking care of it. Thank goodness. And it relaxes and you lose that sense of overwhelm. So start journaling, start writing down what it is you're going through. Start using the JOT method. Start making a control list. One side of the paper, what you cannot control. Other side of the paper, what you can control. These type of exercises can be done on a daily basis to help us to pull into perspective the hard thing that we're going through, the difficulty that we're experiencing. When you're dealing with partners and people, it's okay to say, let me get back to you on that. Even to your spouse, it's okay. I'm not ready to talk about this more right now, or I need more time to think on this. Let me get back to you. But don't put it off indefinitely. Set a realistic goal, like tonight or tomorrow, something reasonable, because it's not fair to them that they should have to wait forever. But also, it's not fair to you that you should have to respond immediately. Give yourself a chance to really be able to let that cerebral cortex fire, allow yourself to brainstorm and meditate on your potential ways of handling so you can strategize. We don't want to be a people pleaser. Oh, okay, yeah, right now. Oh, okay, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to talk about. I just, no, no, no. But we also don't want to explode because we're holding back, holding back, holding back, holding back. We need a balance. Patience is your ability to allow some suffering to happen without acting in irritation or emotion, without reacting. Self-control relies on your patience because as that time passes, when you're breathing and you're blinking, you start thinking. And then you can base your action on your well thought out decisions. Does that make sense? It's not just about little moments and having little wins. We are actually reprogramming the nervous system. We're reprogramming the mind. When you sit down and you do your control list and you use the JOT method, you are reprogramming the brain to analyze and categorize the hardships that you're going through so that they're reframed in a way that's not as triggering. And that's really important. What we don't have control over means we don't have power over it. If there's no power, there's no responsibility. That's the beauty of making that control list. When you realize there's something on the left-hand side that you cannot control, you cross it out because you don't have any power over it. So therefore, it requires none of your brain power. Why think about it? Why feel anything towards it when you have no power over it? You let it go. You cross it off. You focus all of your attention, and all of your power on what you do control. So ask yourself, if you're going through difficulty right now, what am I feeling in my body? It's not universal. Just because you feel a certain doesn't mean everyone feels that way. So ask yourself what you are feeling. Name it. Is it fear? Is it shame? Is it panic? Ask yourself, why does this make me feel this way? The shame, the panic. Write it down. Write down your reasons. Then challenge that way of thinking. Pretend like a child is talking to you, telling you the fears, and then talk back to that child as if you're an adult or like you're talking to a friend that you love. This is helping you to exercise your ability to get into your wise mind. We have to imagine that the way we're treating ourselves, we have to imagine that we're actually treating another person or a child that we're caring for. Because when we treat ourselves the way we treat someone else, all of a sudden we're able to access that best part of ourselves and all that love and all that generosity comes out. But when we think that we're an exception, that's when all the self-abuse comes. And when you're already going through a hard time, the last thing you want to do is get on the self-abuse train. You already lost your job and then you tell yourself, this is your fault. You're stupid. You did this to yourself. That was so dumb. Why did you do that? That's self-abuse. Who does that? Who says that to someone who just lost their job? An abuser, a narcissist. That's what you're doing to yourself. You're being like a mini narcissist to yourself when you cut yourself down. You don't like how you responded in a social situation. Oh, you talked too much. I was so dumb. You overshared. You look like an idiot. Why are you talking to yourself that way? Who does that after a social situation? Tell someone they look dumb. A narcissist, an abuser. That's what you're being to yourself. Stop self-abusing. No more of that. Self-love. Encourage yourself. Hey, you did great. Hey, that's okay. Yeah, it probably wasn't perfect, but that's fine. No big deal. Don't worry about it. That's how you talk to yourself because that's how you would talk to someone that you love, someone that you care about. That's the rule. Give yourself the love that you would give someone else. And so, whatever your hardship is right now, whatever your trial right now is, give yourself the advice that you would give someone else. Write it down on a piece of paper and allow it to calm you. This is you having the ability to regulate your own nervous system. And I know it feels like you can't, and experts tell you you can't, and doctors have told you you can't, and your family members have told you you can't. But even if I'm the first person, I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. You can regulate your nervous system. Pause, blink, breathe, blink, and think. Allow that cerebral cortex to fire up. And then when you're in your wise mind, analyze and make a decision to guide your action. And then you'll show patience and self-control, like Lawani did. And he was sure glad. He had a great time in high school, those 4 years with the bully being gone. You can affect the rest of your life for the positive by acting in your best self and your higher self. If you need help, book a one-on-one session with me.